Washington.
This your boy, Martin for here once again.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is your boy Jamari for here once again, and we are here to talk about this week's episode of Chasing Atlanta. I believe this is episode 8? One of them. It'll be there in the title. But before we get into that, make sure if this is the first time that you're seeing me, I hope you guys enjoy the content. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, if you are a returning viewer, if you want to support me and my co-host Scotty in our project for the Prelude to bring it to its full audio podcast form, we are having a fundraiser that will be in the description below. We are maybe $300 or $400 away from our goal of $1,200. So thank you guys so much for all the support, and anybody who has donated, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it, especially given in the times that we're in. But yes, if you would like to support that link will be down and below. So now that we've gotten all that out the way, let's go ahead and get into the review, okay? So I feel like this may not be as long as I think it is, but we'll see. We're finishing up or coming back to the dinner where we ended off last week, where Oliver had sort of felt attacked and everybody got really emotional and started crying relatively out of nowhere. Everybody just got triggered at one time, so it was kind of like, ugh. So Oliver comes back, and, he states that how every time he wants to be able to come around the group and they want to be able to have fun and talk and not have to deal with all this combativeness. However, and I don't think that this really registered to me last week until this week came around and it became like a hot topic. We know that, Lauren had recorded the phone call that she had with Kendra, and people were chastising her for that. But then I don't know if it just didn't register to me or if I just wasn't paying attention, but Oliver certainly did say that he recorded a conversation that he had with Lauren. And it's kind of like, why? It's like, I mean, I don't want to say that it's right to record people's conversations because in most states it's illegal, but why would you record your friend? It seems odd to try to keep, a history of conversations that you had with your friend for a particular reason. So that's why people feel like they don't feel comfortable around neither one of them right now. Which is, it's weird. And I hope, because we have an upcoming interview with Oliver next month. So I hope we get to talk about these things outside of just the edit, because, the edit will make people look crazy, child. Also, actually, since I just thought about it, I don't know why I didn't say this at the beginning. Tomorrow, well, actually, no. You guys are viewing this today. Later today, because today, this is uploaded on the 17th. Later tonight, we are going to be having both Dominique and Troy from Chasing Atlanta on the Prelude. So make sure you guys are subscribed to my friend Scotty by Nature TV, Mr. Still Standing on YouTube. One of the two, you'll find the channel. So we're going to have them tonight it'll be 9:45 Eastern Standard Time, 8:45 Central Time, and of course it'll be 6:45 Pacific Time for me. So make sure y'all talk about that. We're gonna have a lot of things to talk about. So make sure y'all stay tuned for that. But yeah, so they hash everything out. They start playing games. Everybody ends up on a great note. So the next scene we get is Dominique inviting everyone to this axe throwing. Now, my thing is, if y'all saw last week, our interview with Kendra, which was super dope. I think it's our highest rated interview yet. Make sure you go check that out. It was amazing, hilarious. We love Kendra. So I'm just thinking this group is like I don't want to say that they're violent. I don't want to say they're hostile, but I don't want to be in the room where this group of people is throwing sharp objects. I imagine that this wouldn't be an activity to bring two people who may not get along very well. That's probably why he brought people who, at least at this point in time, like each other. Him, Dominique, Travis, Wayne, Little Kendra, and Rico. All who, at this point, as far as we know, copacetic, we love each other, okay, great. Because I'm like, I don't know if you could put have an axe throwing contest and have Lauren England and Kendra there. I have Oliver anywhere in the room, Troy and Wayne. It would just not, it would just go into a completely different direction. But it was cute. But there were some interesting discussions and things that were said at this particular event that I was kind of like, what? So First of all, it was funny how, you know, of course they have to recant the fight. And it's funny how Kendra just pretend like, I don't even know what y'all talking about. Oh yeah, that, like she just don't remember, like it just blanked from her mind, child. But she was reading Lauren, she was like, why is everybody like so mad at me? But you know, Q, you know, way off in LA, and then Lauren don't ever want to show up to nothing, so we can't really hash anything out if you don't show up to anything. And I was like, well, you have a point. You have a point. And I was watching Dominique's interview with Imani where he kind of echoed the same sentiment. It's like, my issue regarding my sister and, you know, and Lauren could have been like hashed in like episode 2 had Oliver kind of did what Cam did and just kind of like, look, these things being said, I want to bring y'all together so we can hash it out. They hashed it out as far as we know, and it could have just been done. But since Oliver kind of took the somewhat, I don't see, that whole situation is kind of iffy because on one hand, I don't feel like Dominique should have told that man anything. To be completely honest, I don't think he should have told him anything, or at least nothing that I would have wanted to control the narrative of, like I said last week. But at the same time, Oliver kind of delivered the message with like that sort of messy filter on it so that it kind of came off a little bit more negative than it actually was. But be that as it may, they got them hosts together. They talk about, of course, the recording, and Kendra explained it similar to how she explained it in our interview. It was her way of extending the olive branch, per se, and not trying to always be, you know, this rah-rah, have to always have this conflict whenever she's around, because she feels like Laura never comes around and films anything because she's afraid that Kendra's gonna get like really aggressive with her, try to fight her or what have you. And I guess this was her way of being like, I wanna hash this out civilly and I wanna talk. I want us to, you know, get to some sort of common ground. At least that's the way that I took it when she was trying to explain it. So I'm just like, okay, you know what, that makes sense. However, when they start talking about, you know, Troy and the event, of course, Kendra was saying she was kind of taken aback because Troy, you know, was her friend. And of course, Wayne has to throw his shade, child, because they got to boxing, so it's natural. But Wayne said that Troy was a clout chaser. And I'm like, that's interesting. I don't think I necessarily agree. But what's strange, and I'm glad I'm gonna have to get to ask the two of them this, because this part of this threw me off the most of the episode. Dominique said that Troy tried to fight him. I'm like, wait, we didn't see that. And then on top of that, you know, because Rico had my reaction, he said, what? Like, what did you just say? Troy did what? You know what I'm saying? Now, again, editing, Dominique, I have to ask you, because when Wayne said, oh, Troy's a clout chaser, and then it sounded like, and they put the text there that you echoed and said that he is a clout chaser. So I'm like, now wait a minute. This could have been before y'all were friends, or what was that whole thing about? Because that kind of threw me a little off. Not gonna lie, that shit threw me off a little bit. I'm just like, wait a minute. Did he know what he said? Did he say it by accident? Did he mean that? That's what we want to know. So I'm definitely gonna have to make sure I bring that up. I'm sure it's like a, you know, miscommunication or whatever, but if it's not, clearly they blew past that and he doesn't believe that to be true anymore. So we get to the next scene where we have Troy, Dominique, and Cameron outside of, I forget whose apartment it was supposed to be in, but they kind of recant the fight and they bring up the idea again of the recording. And Troy was basically feeling like he felt somewhat, how do I explain it? Because he felt stupid because he was trying to, you know, be her friend and parade her and kind of stand up for her, but then she's kind of going back and trying to extend this olive branch to the person that she talked about she despised the most. And Troy's pretty much just over Kendra because of the whole event, and he still doesn't see it for Wayne because he's asking the question of like, why are you here? Now, the part that I do agree in terms of Wayne, because of our interview, I got a softer side of Wayne, and I could kind of be like, okay, he's not like just this violent person. Excuse me, but I do agree that as the managerial role, it benefits you and your client, Kendra, to not be as at the forefront as you are. Because I think it might affect people taking you and potentially her more seriously. So that would be my only critique, if anything. But I'm sure he knows that now. I want to say looking back on it, it's kind of like, I probably shouldn't have did that way. So, but anyway, at this point, we said Troy's already over it. He's just like, girl, you making all this stuff, and I'm just like, I can't do you right now. Like, I just felt very betrayed. This is supposed to be an event for me, and you kind of fucked it up. So I'm just like, well, I understand. A lot of people felt like Troy shouldn't be as mad as he was, and he shouldn't have been the one fighting and all this stuff. I understood why he was upset, mainly because he asked his friend to buy all that food, to purchase and cook the food. And then he tried to ask them specifically to not, bring any mess to this event because it's supposed to be, an event for him and he wants to be celebrated and whatnot. He didn't want anything to interfere with it. And she was like throwing stuff and trying to hurt, his friend, Oliver, at the time. So I get it. And then him retaliating against what Kendra was doing caused Wayne to turn around and do what he did, and it's just a domino effect. So I definitely can understand it from Troy's point of view as well. Now, I can move on to Oliver, who was filming with Dr. Heavenly from Married to Medicine. He's doing he's a creative director for her YouTube channel. He was doing a video for her series. I forget what it was called. Heavenly Talks or something. I forget what it was called. But he was there with Funky Dineva and T.S. Madison. It looked really, really fun. And he's sort of reflecting like how these like big media personalities that he's looked up to for so long are like taking his creative advice. And it's kind of like really self-reflective. So proud of Oliver for this moment and actually, still contributing to the whole chasing Atlanta, chasing your dream narrative, which is, still always good to see. We may not always agree with everything that Oliver does, but what we can agree on is that he does like actively chase, his dreams and what he wants to do. So good for him. Now, Cameron says that he's, going out on a new business venture. He now is a club promoter. I don't know if he's sort of leaving the styling alone or if he's kind of doing them both at the same time. We're not sure. But he's hosting a club on Monday nights and he invited Dominique and Troy to join him. Excuse me. And they talk about the Kendra phone call with Lauren again. And this is pretty much where, I think, and Travis was there as well. And I believe it was Travis that asked the question on whether or not he feels like there's any sort of resolve that could be made with Kendra to Troy. And Troy was pretty much like, I'm over it. I don't know if it's like, and I'm over it as in I never want to try to reconcile, or it's I'm over it and I just really don't want to talk about it anymore and it'll just kind of heal on its own. I'm curious to know if they can ever move past that moment. So it would love to see. Now, apparently, Cam feels a type of way because he wanted to invite, or he did. Well, actually, no, he didn't. And this is a question because he felt a way that because Lauren wasn't there and they had just had this whole makeup session in the previous episode, so he thought that she would be here because she was in town. But he said he didn't necessarily directly invite her, and he says he felt like I shouldn't have to. Now, I kind of agree and then I kind of don't agree because Dominique was also giving examples like, well, if my friend releases music, I'm going to share it, stream it, things like that. They don't have to necessarily ask me to do it. I'm going to do it. But with clubs and, nights like that, I guess, depending on how much information Lauren knew, because if she knew for sure, because it's like, if you don't invite, like people can kind of get caught up in stuff and they might forget. But if she mentioned it to you or told you specifically that she was coming, then that would be more of I can see more of your point. But if you just kind of assume that she would know, that leaves way too much gray space for her to potentially forget or, anything like that. So I don't think it's necessarily fair completely to be like, oh, she was in town, but she didn't come to my event. Because if you didn't say anything to her and it's just expected her to do it, because I never expect my friends to remember stuff. Because I know sometimes I forget stuff. It is not on purpose. So I think that's why I was sort of like understanding where she may be coming from, if that's the case. Now, if she knew and she was just shady about it and didn't come, that's a whole different story. But this is just me trying to play devil's advocate just in case, you know, Lauren is just as forgetful as me sometimes. So next we get the scene with Lauren, Cameron, Q, who is finally back in Atlanta, and Travis. So they're meeting up at this restaurant. And, you know, they're catching up, they're talking about, you know, what each other is doing, what each other is up to, what they want to accomplish and things of that nature. Cameron shares that his new business venture is going to be in club promoting. And Lauren talks about how, you know, she's grateful to be around people that she knows and loves, and how she's not, you know, letting her past relationship affect her, and how she's sort of learned to step away from these toxic relationships, which is good. And that's an actually very important skill, to be honest with you, because a lot of times we'll find ourselves in situations, friendships, relationships, or whatever kind of interaction have you that we know is bad, but we'll stay in it because of history. We'll stay in it because, oh, we feel like they'll change or all that stuff, and we don't have the strength to leave. So her deciding to make that decision for herself, I think is a very, very powerful moment. And Q was saying how, you know, he went out to LA, how he was, you know, got all this stuff, but he still felt like there was still unresolved issues within himself, and that's why when the thing happened with him and Oliver, he didn't want to retaliate right away because he knew it would have been like miscommunication, would have been really defensive about it. But since he stepped away, had time away, was able to sort of, you know, gather his thoughts, he was able to approach it with a more level head. He says it may not have anything to do with me, it may be something doing with you, and which is true. That's why you really shouldn't react right away. You know, of course we're human and we'll do, you know, what we think is right in the moment, but he's like, you know what, I had time away to sort of approach the issue differently this time. So he's ready to talk with Oliver. And lastly, Travis, you know, had shared, you know, of course, the awful news that his grandfather had passed that day that they taped that. And I believe he had just lost his grandmother a few months before. So extending the hands of prayer in Travis' directions. I lost both of my grandparents as well. So I definitely know how that feels. So I definitely wish you the best, my brother, because that is, I mean, honestly, 2020 has just been trash. We have lost multiple people, from personal family members to media icons. It's just trash. We're ready for 2021, to be completely honest. So the next scene we get is with Lauren England, and she's performing her new song, Funny, in the club. She was saying that there were so many things that went wrong. You know, her background dancers didn't get their costumes. There was other things wrong with her performance. I think with like kind of, not the lights, but there was something else that was technically wrong with the performance. But she's like, you know what, we're just gonna run with it. We're gonna give it our all. And I saw Oliver was in there. I even saw Sharada was in there. I was like, I recognize you. But I think she did really good. Actually, the song is actually not that bad. It is catchy. I'll give her that. I will give Miss Laura England that the song is kind of catchy. I ain't even gonna lie. But I did like her outfit though. The little red, like, I think that's leather? Not leather. What material is that that's like really reflective and it looks like, I don't know. Somebody tell me in the comments because it's not gonna come to my head right now and I don't feel like trying to wait to figure it out. But you look good. She had a little high pony, very like superhero-esque. I liked it. So lastly, after all this, we get the power of three to return, plus Travis. That's Lauren England, Q, and Oliver. Now, of course, Travis, Q, and Lauren were on time, and Oliver was about 40 minutes late. But Oliver did say that he was late because he had gotten into it with his mom that day, and this was apparently taped on the day that Chi-Chi DeVayne passed away. Now, for those of you who do not watch Drag Race or hadn't watched Drag Race from the 8th season of the show, there was a contestant by the name of Chi-Chi DeVayne who, I cannot pronounce the name of the illness that took her, but it was some, you know, something that she developed through her adulthood, and she was in the hospital for a very long time earlier this year, and unfortunately it was around August when she passed away. And you know, she was a good friend of mine as well, as I'm sure she was to Oliver, and I too was very affected by Chi-Chi's passing because she was such a bright spirit and never said anything bad about people, never tried to get involved with conflict. But anyway, R.I.P. to Chi DeVane. But that happened on the same day, and then he said he got like some kind of makeup spill on his white pants, so he had to go back and change, and so he was just going through a lot, just trying to get to this meetup. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of things discussed in this meetup confused me. I really did get confused, and they were having to bleep out so much stuff. There was context being lost, and I don't know. I really wish that, you know, Oliver, one of them can sort of fill in the blanks. But there were a lot of interesting topics that did arise. Let me see. So Q pulls out the text, apparently where Oliver texted him in the middle of the night saying how you need to stop telling or watch who your friends are and stop telling your friends all your business, something along those lines. And when Oliver explained it, Oliver says that it was somebody else who came to him at like a shoot that they were doing or something along the beach. And they said, oh, Q is homeless and, you know, Q this, and just telling him all this kind of personal information. And Q had the notion, or was asking the question, like, how is it that people feel like so comfortable to come to you about personal shit about me? Because if somebody else was trying to air you out in front of me, I would dead it right away, just because that's the kind of person that I am. Whereas instead of telling me exactly who this was that was saying these things about me and what it was that was said, you just gave me the vague, oh, stop telling your friends, you know, your personal business, without actually giving me any actual information. So I could definitely understand Q's standpoint in that, but then Oliver did fire back. And even though this was last season, I can't really remember it vividly, but he's like, well, weren't you still friends with Gardini when last year he was airing me out and this, that, and the fourth, and we weren't really talking like that? I mean, granted, that may be true, but I mean, two wrongs don't make a right. So, I mean, if that's the case, you can both, you know, kind of be reflective on what it was the other person did that hurt the other person. But there was so much, there was so much information about what Lauren's did, or information I got about Lauren and had to do with Q. Honestly, I got confused. I'm not even gonna lie. I understood, okay, how could you let somebody talk about me to you? That much I understood. But when they started involving what Lauren got going on, and they were still bleeping stuff out, child, I'm like, I can't keep up. I'm very confused on what the hell's going on here. But be that as it may, they're still in the middle of this conflict. So, and from the next episode, it looks like Q is talking to, who I believe, I'm pretty sure that was Travis at the time. So it's like, did I even ever have a brother? Because the way that you're treating me is something that I would never do to you. So it's like, but however, when I was on live earlier, I didn't get to watch it enough to get any real context, but I saw that Oliver was live and that Q had joined the live. And so it seems as though they have, you know, come together afterwards at some point, which is good to see. But yeah, like, that was the Chase to Atlanta episode, you guys. Again, make sure you guys check out the prelude tomorrow over on Scotty by Nature TV, where we will have Dominique and Troy joining us together with the freaking Frack Attack. And I'm especially going to want to see it because of the outfit that I have tomorrow. It's going to be really, really surprising. Thanks to Dominique. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And also, again, the fundraiser for me and Scotty's podcast to purchase a new computer to edit and get it on the new platforms is in the link below. If you guys wish to donate, it would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time in the video. Bye, guys.
Like, share, subscribe.
Washington.